MBI. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, based on where you are. And I'm Tuza, and one of the volunteers in Myanmar TESOL. Welcome to Myanmar TESOL Teacher Support Program. And I'd like to say a little bit about Myanmar TESOL. As we all know, Myanmar TESOL has been working on professional development for teachers, especially teaching English, as we believe quality education starts with quality teachers who are skillful and competent. On this purpose, we've been working with teachers and teaching professionals locally, regionally, and internationally, offering CPD sessions. And before we begin, a bit of housekeeping. This session will take about an hour and will be recorded. You can make comments and ask questions and write them in the chat box. After the talk, there will be a Q&A session for about 10 minutes. Then you will be able to ask questions of yourself having your microphone on. Towards the end, we'll give you a link for a Google form for needs analysis. This form will also serve as taking your names and opinions for this webinar so that we can send back the e-certificates to you. Lastly, there's a request to keep all your microphones off and keep yourself muted during these sessions while the speakers is talking. Now is the time to introduce the speaker. Xiao Mindu is currently undertaking an MED Higher Education Leadership Program on Fulbright Scholarship at the University of Washington, USA. He has also completed MA TESOL, taking methods and materials for TESOL, research methods and second language acquisition from the University of Washington. He is also the founder of Adibity Education and Holding Center. He has participated in EOT conferences, locally as well as internationally as a speaker and as a coach. Now, sir, and I'd like to hand over this session to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Tuza. And good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. And thank you so much for your lovely greetings, everyone. So I'm gonna pull up my screen. Okay, so as Siama introduced me, I'm originally from Myanmar, so I'm gonna start with how your breakfast, brunch, lunch, or dinner was instead of how are you. So that would be really good if you can tell me how your meal was. My dinner, I would say my dinner because it's still very early here in the morning, around 5 a.m. So I haven't finished my breakfast yet. My dinner yesterday it was very good because a friend of mine cooked it for me and it was Myanmar traditional food. So it was really delicious, yummy. Good, medium. Great. Okay. I don't see any very bad, which I think is a good sign. Cool. Wow. Many responses. I'm glad that you had a good meal. Right. And now let's take a moment and think what made you rate your food maybe excellent, good, medium, poor, or very bad. I didn't see very bad, so I would just remove it. So what made you to rate so? Why can you say that it was good? Why can you say that it was excellent? Can you type a few words? Was it because of the taste? Ah, okay. So Andy, yeah, it was because of the taste. Okay. Chilies. So because it was so delicious, and that's why you think it was so good. Ah, Nenimpu. Forgive me if I forgot to call you teacher or I don't know, right? So, but I respect you. In case I forgot like teacher Chole or yeah. Um, your mom cooked it for you, and that's why it was so good. Ah, for Miamo, I'm so sorry, Miamo. Speedy recovery and drink plenty of water. You're sick. Of course, if you are sick, you probably might not find your appetis, okay? Okay, so cool, cool, cool. All right. So for some of you, it was really good, but for some of you, not bad. But of course, like when we design food, right? So when we decide whether the food was good, whether the food was yummy or not, we usually think of their appearance, the taste, or probably texture. I don't know. Like there can be some factors or maybe some indicators that we often use, whether that we often decide that we often use to decide as whether the food is good or not, right? But what did we just do? Or what did you just do? How is it related to our webinar topic? Anyone? We are just talking about food. We haven't talked about our webinar topic yet. Is there any relationship between them? Okay. We are kind of criticizing. We are kind of making a reflection. Exactly, right? So welcome to the webinar, guys, or welcome to the webinar teachers. So the topic that we will be discussing or that we will be talking for the next 50, 60 minutes is the power of or the impact of reflective teaching, right? So when we talk about reflective teaching, I mean, the terms seems a bit heavy, but it is as simple as reflecting about our food choice, right? Whether the food was good or not. So that's also what we will be doing for the next 40, 50 minutes. And we will be reflecting on our teaching practices. We will be reflecting on our teaching philosophy. We will be reflecting on our classroom practices. Okay. So, yes, so that's the reflection. And this is the agenda for tonight. So we just finished a warm-up activity and we will dive into what, how, and why reflective teaching before I talk a little bit about my personal story or maybe my personal practice. And then we will be discussing possible scenarios where reflective teaching can be applied. Then we will be having Q&A. Okay, good. So, so I was introduced as a teacher of English, founder of, I don't know, my own organization. But I also would like to give you a little bit background about me, which are also my identities, right? I love cooking and I also really love chilies, especially spicy ones, green chilies. I'm also Dory's brother, as you can see. My Dory is there in the she was in my luggage at that night. I was preparing to come to the United States. I was really sad when I saw her. She was, I know, it seems like she wanted to join me. Unfortunately, I couldn't bring her. And I'm also the youngest son in my family. And I also see myself as a learning advocate. So for those who are interested in following me, you can just go and follow me. But I just use Myanmar language when I talk about stuff. So anyway, so that's a little bit about me. And we will now go to the main topic that I will be discussing. So you are here to talk or maybe like to listen to me talking about reflective teaching. But what is reflective teaching? Any volunteers? I don't know if you can unmute yourself. If you can unmute yourself, maybe, oops, sorry. If you can unmute yourself, you can also unmute yourself. Otherwise, you can also communicate with me via chat. Can you try unmute yourself? No?
Hello, yeah. Can I
Oh,
share
yes,
my
please.
thoughts?
Please,
Uh,
someone you may.
I don't know exactly, but after seeing the title, I think it will involve self-awareness, critical analysis, and some methods and experience that can gain insight and which will work well with the students.
Okay, so that's a perfect definition, I would say. And there are also like some inputs, responses. It's like reflecting, right, what you have done and reflecting on your classes. That works. Thank you so much. Of course, when you Google or when you look up the definition or I don't know, the practice, the philosophy, and then you will see different definitions, right? So different people, different organizations will surely define reflective teaching in a different way. So instead of going to different definitions, I think I would just go to my own, which I see in a more simplified version, right? So for me, reflective teaching is thinking about the past for future actions. So when I say reflective teaching, of course, it involves thinking, but we think about the past, right? Our past action. And we do not just think. Okay, we think and then we don't let it go. But we think for with a purpose for future actions, right? And also, when I say reflective teaching, it is not just about what I didn't do because like when I work with my colleagues, when I work with different teachers at my own organizations, when I say can you reflect on your teaching? Oh, this didn't go well, that didn't go well. Yes, that is one part of reflective teaching. But when we say reflective teaching, it is also about thinking of our strengths. So today, what we will be discussing is how reflective teaching can be applied, right, to reflect on our past actions, which is for possibly better outcomes in the future, in our future classes. And also remember that it also involves thinking about your strengths, not only about your weaknesses or areas to improve, okay? So that's my own definition. And let's see what other teachers are also sharing. You can also read them. Teacher Murphy is saying that reflective teaching is a practice where teachers reflect on their teaching methods. Exactly. Okay. I think Teacher Murphy has already given me the answer that I want, but I think I still would like to ask other teachers to share with me or maybe to create with me a list on what to reflect. Because I've already said that reflective teaching is thinking about the past action, but it's for thinking about the past and for our future action. And it also includes strengths and areas to improve. But what to reflect on? Any ideas? Target language is, of course, one area that we often reflect, right? Okay. Teacher Lei Yi, lesson plan. Yes, we reflect on our lesson plan. What else? What else? What else? Personal aims. We also reflect. Thank you, Teacher Desian, right? We also reflect on it just disappeared. or instructions, right? Will we give instructions and whether we check the instructions in a proper way or not. Strategies, techniques. Okay, we reflect on 100 and I would say like 27 things or maybe even more than that, right? So there are so many areas, so many things that we can reflect on. So that's true. And here is a list of the things that I was able to think of last night just before I went to bed. Hold on, I'm gonna mute all of you. If you want to speak, want to contribute, feel free to unmute, okay? Oh, yes, thank you. So, this is not everything that we can reflect on, okay? So you can just add the list on. It will never finish. I'm also, I'm sure that you also have probably seen a Facebook post. I think it was a poster on Facebook that I saw a few weeks ago, right? So what other people see teaching is very simple. Teaching, right? So in a psychiatry, just like I think it was a pine chat, yeah. But what teaching actually is very complicated, right? So more than 127 things involved in teaching. So that's why there are so many rooms or so many areas that you can reflect on. For example, right? So feedback, whether the feedback that we give to our students were useful or not, whether the students ask questions, whether the lesson that we delivered was applicable to real world or not, or maybe whether we elicit that or we are just the one who just said everything in the classroom. So something the area related to teaching, right? In addition, we also can reflect on classroom management, and they are also like other areas, factors that we can make reflections on. For example, last night I went to bed around 1, and this morning I had to wake up around 5. So I just slept 4 a.m. And then maybe I can also reflect on whether my energy can have an impact on the way I deliver this webinar, right? So as long as something can influence or as long as something can have an impact on your teaching, on your classroom, so you can definitely reflect on that. You can definitely consider that for your further teachings, for your further classes, right? And then is the importance. We just talk about what reflective teaching is and what to reflect on. But are those areas really, are those areas really important to reflect on? Are these areas? Anyone? Are they really important? Or are we already busy with teaching? Should we make reflections on our practices? We finish teaching and then goodbye students. We go back home. We just prepare for the next lesson. No more reflections. Is it still important to reflect? Certainly, sure. But why? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Uh, like if we reflect at our teaching methods or our lesson plans, and we can make some analysis on that, and then on the next day we can make some improvement. Like if we if we do some reflectors on our teaching, like today I talk a lot and my teacher talking time is so much, and tomorrow I can make it less and I can give time to my students like that. So refreshing our teaching methods I think is really important for every teacher.
Thank you so much, Teacher Wei. So it's for better outcome, right? So yes, that's true. That's true. And I think it's also about reinforcing our beliefs, and also I would say like boosting our confidence or maybe self-esteem, right? As I said at the probably beginning of my talk, when we reflect, we do not reflect just only areas to improve, right? We also consider what went very well or what was so-so. So when you see what you did very good or what went well in your class, I'm sure that it also can give you a sense of pleasure to you, right? Maybe confidence and other things, positive things, hopefully. So I also believe like reflective teaching is important. I don't see any, no, I don't think it's not, I don't think it's important. So I don't see that. So I'm very happy. And I think I also would like to take an opportunity to share my personal story for maybe 2-3 minutes. I would say like my reflective teaching journey started just after I began my teaching career. I'm not sure like if I can call it teaching career because it was in 2012 that I started working for a monastic school, a local monastic school back in my country in Mandalay, in my city. And then, of course, I didn't have, I haven't taken much teacher training back in those days yet. So I wasn't that much confident. And then one day, I think it was in 2013. Yeah, so it was in 2013 that I started teaching actually. In 2012, I just joined the school, but I just observed. And then in 2013, it was one morning. And then my senior teacher told me that there was a need for a substitute teacher. And then I just went to the classroom. So I just went to that classroom and then I just started teaching them. Before I thought, I think I prepared, I don't know, for an hour or even two. But when I actually was in the classroom, I started feeling nervous. And I was using a piece of chalk and I was writing something on the blackboard. But I got so stressful, so stressed, as I got so anxious, I was so confused and I couldn't continue. At that time, someone, maybe one of the students, was yelling at me, "Oh, I don't want to teach with an unqualified teacher." And then I became so stressful again, right? So I was so shy. I was so embarrassed. At the same time, I was really, really angry. And then I just ran out of the classroom and then reported the case to the senior teacher, who later went to the classroom and then give punishment to the students. So anyway, it was a chaotic situation. After that happened, there were two options that I could possibly think of, right? So because of that incident, probably I could have given up my teaching career. Maybe, oh my gosh, the students are really mean. So I no longer want to teach because I still have to see those students, right? So every day. So that's one option. And the second option is, okay, things happen, but let them happen. But what I could do is probably taking teacher training, making reflections and learning from my seniors and doing practices, right? So I think of course, like I chose the second option and that's why I've become a teacher, right? So that's why I'm able to continue teaching. So anyway, my point here is that there can be the time that the things didn't go as we planned, but it's okay, right? So as long as we analyze what went well, what didn't went well, I hope there are always rooms for improvement. I hope there are always rooms for what we could do better in our future classes, right? So with that in mind, I started practicing reflective teaching in most of my classes. So when a session is over, I usually reflect on the students. I usually reflect on the lesson plan, the way I give instructions, and every aspect of the class. And these days, I also encourage my colleagues to practice reflective teaching. And I'm going to share you a form that my colleague just filled in for her class, because at DBD, which is the organization that I just founded, we do have to, my colleagues, they do have to use the reflective teaching form just after their class, which is the concept that I got from, I would say, like Salter. So I still use this one, but it's not exactly, and I think I will show it to you. So for example, this is kind of format, but I think you don't have to do that much format, right? So for me, when I started doing this practice, I didn't really follow format procedures. But I just thought of what went where, what didn't go where, right? But if you want to do a form, then that's also okay. For example, this can be your name, right? Topic, blah 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 blah. And then what is your response to your class just after it has finished, right? For example, my colleague reflection is, okay, so they chose the topic which was suitable for that student because she was in a communicative English class for adults, and it was week 2 and level 1. So she thought, okay, it was an appropriate topic, right? And it was a good time, the right timing to talk about likes and dislikes and that kind of stuff. Okay. And okay, this was also her reflection. Okay, for example, like 3 positive things that she did. So she felt like she asked ICQ, and that's why the students were clear of what they were supposed to do in the breakout sessions. And she also reported to me that the warm-up that she used were relevant and helpful, and students have plenty of opportunities to speak. Okay, so these were the things that she thinks she did very well. And also there were some areas, as usual, nothing surprising. So she thinks how warm up took more than 15 minutes. So probably that's why she wants to make sure that her warm ups goes better in the future, right? So, and the other thing is exactly right. So as she spent a lot of time on warm up, she didn't really have time for wrap up, right? So anyway, so my point here is that, of course, you can also use a format form to reflect on what went where and what didn't go where, so that you are informed of what should be done in your future classes, in your next class, probably, right? So let me go back to my slides. Let me go back to my, okay, so but before we go to my next slide, do you have any questions so far regarding to the reflective teaching form or practices? Not yet. Yes, if you have, you can just end, I would say.
Um, Hello, good day. I just want to ask if that file with the reflective teaching form can we have it, or are you just going to send it through the chat box or send it to our emails? Whatever, we can use it. Thank you.
That's a good question. So that's actually like the form that we use at DBD Education. But based on that, or I think you can just also Google. You can also create your own teaching, or maybe like a reflective teaching form. The reason why I don't want to send, or why I don't want to give my form to others is I would like to encourage teachers to contextualize to customize their own file, because the areas that we want to reflect on, the way we want to reflect on our teaching practices cannot be the same based on our teaching philosophy, based on our student background, based on our goals, right? So my suggestion for you is you can also take a screenshot if you want, but at the end of the day, I believe that teaching should be contextualized. So depending on what you need, you can also create the form, which I think is very easy. Yes. Any other questions? No. Okay. So if you have more questions, I think you can also save them. I do have two short scenarios that we can discuss. After that, we can come back to Q&A, okay? So we have talked about what reflective teaching is, and you also have already, I also have already talked about my personal journey, right? How I use reflective teaching in my everyday teaching career. I also have talked about how I have been using it at my own organization. So now let's discuss a possible scenario where we can apply reflections, where we can make reflections. So imagine, which I think is very usual, right? The students, most students, they don't finish or they don't submit their homework. So in that case, how can we apply the concept of reflection, the concept of reflective teaching? Just take maybe 30 seconds, 20 seconds. And then if you're ready, you can just unmute and share. Okay, that's one possible solution. You were trying to revise the instructions. So once students don't finish their homework, it is also possible that they didn't understand our instructions or expectations, right? Okay. What else? Maybe, yes, the workload was too much and that's why they didn't finish. Siama, Mintoda, yes, you will probably discuss with them, okay, to know their needs, right? Why they didn't finish that, give more time, reconstruct. Yeah, Kai, yes. Ask the students if there was a problem or if there was a challenge for them. So exactly. So see, so the way we will be responding to this problem, right? To this issue, I would say, to this issue is not the same, depending on our teaching philosophy, depending on our students, depending on our class, and depending on us, right? So that's also one of the reasons why when I told you that it's better to create your own reflective teaching form rather than using my mind, right? So because our situation is unique and the way we think, the way we will be responding to a particular situation can be different as well. So anyway, of course, I mean, like, I do not know your situation. Even if I know your situation, I'm sure that the approach, the way you approach to this issue can be different to the way I would be approaching, right? So yeah, so that's true. Let me check. Yeah, so all very good answers. Yeah, very creative, insightful solutions, right? Okay, trying to their struggling points. Good, good, good. So what about this one? What about this one? So this time, it's not about the students anymore. It is about us. Okay, so the class finishes at probably 9, 10, but I always have to take an extra 10 to 15 minutes, or maybe probably 20 minutes, which sometimes happens at activity. Teacher to do it always happens to me, okay? Teacher Suzanne. So exactly, right? So one day is an issue. We cannot assume that there's only one possible solution. We cannot assume that there is one fits for all strategy or approach, right? So there are, I don't know, there exists 360 angle reflections. For example, we can also think of the interaction patterns, whether the activities that we design, whether the interaction patterns that we designed consumes significant amount of time, right? Because that can also lead to this issue. What else? What else? Yes, yes, yes. Teacher ZKN, right? So even 10 to 15 minutes extra time won't be enough for us sometimes. Okay, you will be managing the time, teacher Mindota. Teacher Hinton, will be thinking of anticipated problems and solutions for that next class. Okay, let's see. Teacher Justin, do you want to share how you will be using flipped classroom in this scenario? You can just MU if you want. No? Okay, so I think I would just conclude a bit. So there are so many things that you can do, and what is best or what is the thing that you should do would probably depend on your class, right? So it's not mine. So thank you so much. So, and that's also one of the reasons why I believe in the power or maybe in the effectiveness of reflective teaching. So there are, I think, like 10, which I will not be reading aloud. But what I believe is that, for example, in this one, right? So the pants and the shirts, like they are loose for this child. And this is what I see when it comes to professional development for teachers, because we impose things, we trying to give training to the teacher. Teacher, you need this training, that training. Teacher, like you couldn't manage this class well or that class well. Okay, now take classroom management training. So which I think is useful, but I don't think there is one fit for all solution for every situation in teaching. So when you make reflective teaching, I believe that you can come up with more tidy and with more customized solution when you use reflective teaching in your career. So that's why I just want to conclude that when we talk about reflective teaching, of course, it needs to be a process, right? Not a product. For example, okay, I'm gonna make the reflective teaching for this class or that class, and then I just finish. So it's not like that. It's not also taking a training. It is a concept. It is a practice that I think should be integrated into your life, into your classes. So you will be planning, you will be teaching, you will be assessing, and you will be thinking of what went where and what didn't go where. And at the end of the day, what you should be reflecting on is also based on your, can be different based on your students and based on your unique positionality. So what I mean by your unique positionality is that, I think I also told you, right? So your teaching philosophy, your cultural background, your school policy, and I don't know what else. Your students, yes, or students already include that. So maybe your country situation, culture, and other stuff. So I think that's all. That's all for now. Yes. Any questions or discussions around this? Or if you would like to share your teaching practices, or whether you like particularly to your experience in making reflections, feel free to share so. Teacher K, thank you for your insights. As you have mentioned, there are many areas to reflect on. Hold on. And sometimes we are focusing on the same areas that we miss other areas we can improve on. So my question is if there are any ways for effective and efficient reflection that we are not being trapped the same thought patterns. Excuse me. So exactly. So thank you so much, Teacher K. I think that also happens. That also sometimes happens to me, and I'm sure like most teachers they can also relate that to that issue, right? So for example, we will reflect on something. Okay. Let's say like let's talk about time management. I feel like time is never enough, and then probably I may write, okay, time management is the area that I should focus on in my next class. But when I actually teach next class, that happens the same. So in that case, what should we do? So that's a very good question, I would say. The first thing is please do not think that that issue can be solved in the next class. So sometimes we also need to take time. For example, let's say teachers who have already taken CELTA training, I'm sure like they can feed this, right? So in CELTA, we have to complete 8 teaching practices, what we call TPs. So maybe like in the first time, second time, in our second TP, third, or I don't know, fourth. So most of the teachers usually receive feedback on instruction checking questions, concept checking questions, teacher talking time versus student talking time. But do we improve it, or do we stay, or maybe like can we make a balance between teacher talking time and student talking time just after they have the feedback from our instructors, or just after our reflection? So no, that's impossible, right? Sometimes if we are not if we don't have much experience in that particular aspect, if we haven't taken enough action yet, then it can still happen in our future sessions, in our future classes as well. So to answer your question, I would say that you also need to understand the fact that the issues may not solve within a day or two. So you also need to take time. And also, of course, you are willingness to fix that issue, right? So sometimes we make, as I said, reflective teaching is not just about thinking, it's not just about reflection, it's also about taking action, right? How you will be taking the action can be different based on your preferences, based on your plan. So my suggestion for you is don't focus on so many things that you would like to reflect on, or sorry, that you would like to improve on in the next class. Just focus on 2 or 3. Probably 2 would be good. And that's why in my reflective teaching form, you will also realize that I just only put 2 areas that I want my colleagues to reflect on and that I reflect on. And there will be 3 areas that did very well, that went very well, 3 areas that went very well, 3 strands, I would say. but just only two, right? So if we reflect on so many things at the same time, I don't think that will be actionable, that will be practical. I hope I answered your question. Any other questions? That would be good if you can MU as well, because I don't know, like fonts are kind of small, so it's difficult for me to read, but I will try. Oh, yes. Ding, 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 ding. You can also MU if you want. Thank you. Thank you so much for your reflection. Yes. Any other questions? Susan, I just received a question from Susan. So yeah, can we postpone that reflective teaching? Can we postpone reflective teaching if we are occupied by series of classes due to time constraints? Well, of course, definitely, right? So as I said, when I say reflective teaching, it doesn't mean you have to do it after every class, right? Maybe like you teach 2, 3 classes a day, and then when you get back home, or I don't know, like just when you finish those classes, you can just think of, okay, so what went well and what didn't go well. You can also think of one specific, you can also reflect on one specific class, or you can also reflect on a combination of classes. Definitely. I don't think there's one red rule or one global rule that applies to reflective teaching. Yeah, it's very customizable for sure. Any other questions? Raise hand or no? Bandit. How has your
Hello.
recent? Oh yes, I will go this one and then
Okay.
I will. Oh no, okay, you can just go.
Okay, I will read out to the question for you. Celsius asked you, so you mean only 2 or 3 reflection is enough? This is his questions, yeah?
Only 2 or 3 points.
Here, Celsius asked you, so you mean only 2 or 3 reflection is enough?
That's a very good question. So again, it can depend on teachers, right? So it can be different from teacher to teacher. But for me, when I make reflections, it is not about thinking a list of my weaknesses. So I mean, like there can be more than 10, more than 20, but rather than developing a list, I would like to focus on concrete or maybe small steps, small things, probably 2 or 3 ideally for me, that I can also take action on. So if I cannot take action, or if I cannot do anything, even though I have a list of things that I can improve on, what is the point, right? So that's why instead of developing a list that I can focus on, that I can improve on, I'm just trying to think of 2 or 3 points, which I really, really would like to see changes, improvements in next class. Yes. Will you help me? Teacher, I don't know. I couldn't see you. Oh, teacher, you mentor. Yes. Will you help me
Yes,
for
yes,
yeah.
okay. One more question, Sarah, from Sarah Johan. Hello, Sarah. I'm not sure if my question is related to the topic, but I would like to know that if our teaching is most effective and productive, how can we know? How is a way talk class look like? This is his question, Sarah.
Very good question, right? So as I shared during my webinar, during my talk, something related to my personal story, right? That happened in 2013. So of course, you can also see based on the reactions, based on the student engagement, you can somewhat conclude the effectiveness of your classes. But of course, that shouldn't be the only factor. You can also reflect yourself, or probably you can invite your colleagues to make observations. When I say colleagues, it can be your seniors, it can be your juniors, it can be the teachers who hold similar or same position as you. For example, at a DBD, all teachers have to observe at least one session per month. So that's my rule, and it applies to everyone regardless of your position. So my main purpose is through peer observation, I anticipate my colleagues to support each other. And when I say observation, it's not just about giving feedbacks or giving comments that the teacher need to take action in future classes, in next classes. It's also about letting that teacher know of their strengths as well. So is that the question, teacher Yuminton? I don't know if I answered that one. I hope that, yeah.
Yes, it's okay. Yeah. Okay, one more question here. Okay, I will read for you.
Please.
This is the question from teacher Dwemo. How should we typically approach our teaching sections?
Approach after teaching session?
Yes, this is hard questions.
Approach
How
what,
should
sorry?
we typically approach our teaching sections?
Can you elaborate? What do we approach after class?
Teacher Dwemo, okay, you can also unmute and you can also clarify your questions. Teacher
Hello,
Dwemo.
hello, okay.
Yes,
Okay, so
please.
yes. I tried to mistake keywords. I ask you one questions. How should we typically approach such reflections after teaching sessions? Such reflection, how should we do it, or how should we typically approach such reflections after teaching sessions, sorry.
Thank you, teacher.
Okay,
So my
can you hear
suggestion
me?
is, yes, I can. So my suggestion for you is to start making a reflection with what went well. So yeah, so when the class is over, and when I started making reflections, I just focus on negative things. Imagine, right, after the class, my energy level is down. If I focus on negative things, I'm just killing myself, right? Instead, I'm trying to think of what went well. For example, after this webinar, probably I will say, oh, okay, the engagement of participants was incredible. So that's one aspect that I would probably think of. The second one, okay, things go as I planned. Within time frame, that would be another strength. And of course, maybe I will also think of maybe one or two, or maybe probably three areas that I can think of. So my point is, start with a positive thing. Don't kill yourself. That's one thing. The other thing is, you can also tell what you really enjoyed during the session, or maybe during your class, to your colleagues. I still remember my colleague back in 2015-16, and we work on the same program. It was a pre-college program, and she is from anyway, she's from a foreign country. So after her class, after her session, she often approached me and told me, oh, like this is what went well in my class. Okay, I listened to her. So at that time, I didn't really understand what she was talking about when she approached me, because it was her class, it wasn't mine. But these days, I realized that it also gives her power. It also gives her energy. It also gives her self-esteem, right? So sharing your strengths, right? Talking about your strengths to your colleague can be can be another thing that you can do. So
Thank you, Sarah, for your answers. Yes,
yeah,
I just need to think of positive things after teaching sessions.
definitely. So
Thank you,
teacher,
Sia.
you want to answer all?
Okay, this is another question from teacher K. And so as to summarize her questions, the way I understand is that she knows she herself, teacher herself, the importance of the reflection. But she said, during these days, teachers are very busy. That's why they don't want to do the formal they don't want to do reflection informally with the form. Apart from the form, what other ways can you suggest to do reflections?
Okay. That's a very good question, right? To be honest, I'm really bored of filling out the forms. And one of the things that I didn't enjoy doing Zelda was, like filling forms, like so many forms. And I also don't want to do that. I know teachers are already busy, right? With other stuff. So my suggestion is these days I don't really use form. Although I ask my colleagues to submit me forms, but I only ask them only one form. So they have to report to me just only one reflection form per month. They don't have to give me every week or every day. So anyway, my point is, I think at the beginning, when you want to start practicing, or maybe when you want to cultivate the habit of reflective teaching practices in your career, in your life, it is good to start with a format structure, maybe once a week or once a month, or I don't know, like depending on your time. But as you gradually develop a sense of uh, that practice, you may not use it. For example, these days, I no longer use the form for myself, but what I do is after the class, I mean, like, I don't think like it's a heavy work, right? So I just think of maybe one to two areas that I did well, and then maybe one or two other areas that I should focus on in my next class. So my the short answer to you is it is okay not to use the form, although I still suggest you to do so, especially in your early days. Yes.
Thank you, Sia. Okay, so as to continue to add some more from questions to you. Teachers, they want to do, as for me, I also want to do reflection, but not formally, informally. Okay, that's fine. Question is that how can we do self-reflection informally, not in a formal way?
I think I just answered that question, right? So when I say informally, first it can be like self-talk. So I just let myself know what I did well, what I didn't do well. That's one thing. The other thing is I can also approach my colleagues to let them know that hey, do you have a minute? And okay, so today I taught this one, that one, my students were like this, like that, blah blah blah. So that's something that I would do. Yeah. Or some teachers, I forgot to share you one day. One of my colleagues, they write a teaching diary or journal, I would say. So that can be the other thing that you can do. But for me, I'm bored of those kind of stuff. So I just reflect informally. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Sia.
Is that all?
Okay, if you want to ask question, you can also unmute your microphone.
I think I don't have to be the only one who answers the question. So if you also want to share your experience in reflective teaching or your thoughts, feel free to do so. It doesn't have to be a question. It can be a comment. It can be sharing your experience. No more?
Hello, teacher May. Any comments or anything to share about reflective teaching today?
Well, actually, Sir Amin has elaborated his thoughts and ideas so well that there's nothing much left for me to add on. But actually, reflection and reflective practices are really very good, not only for teachers in the teaching life, but also for our everyday life. If we can reflect on what we do every day, what I have done, today, did I do good things? Did I do something bad to others? I think it is a good way of life. So what I do is not for everything, but for my teaching, okay, I try to make my life a bit, I try to simplify my life. I don't have the time to use very complicated and long forms. I just ask myself mentally, did I do well? Are there any wow moments in my lessons? And then I'm trying to reflect on them and then, oh, okay, these are the things that I did well. My students love the moments. So I will try to have more of these in the future. So that's one thing. And of course, there are also some moments where I wasn't very happy or where I wanted to cry. So, okay, I ask myself again, I kind of trying to read their facial expressions. Oh, here, okay, people are not very happy. I didn't do very well. Or at least I feel from my inner part, I know that this is something that I didn't want to happen. In this case, I kind of, think, okay, what's wrong? What went wrong here? Okay, is it my instruction? Is it the way I presented? Is it the way I treated the people? I kind of, do this evaluation very informally, and I try not to repeat the same mistake in the future. So I kind of, simplify my life. I try to reflect on what I did well and what I did not do very well. So this is how I do with my lessons for every day. And I hope that this is quite very simple but useful for most of us. For us busy teachers, okay, in our daily life, we don't have the time to have very long forms for reflection.
Thank you so much, Xiaoma.
Thank you, Sia.
Thank you, teacher May.
Thank you.
Okay, I think there's one questions in the chat box. Okay, I will read out the question for you. The name is a little bit loud. The question is that how can we evaluate our students in a short period of time while conducting our class?
Oh, that's a heavy question. I might need help from other teachers too. I think it's more about assessment rather than reflection, although reflection can be a part of that. So any thoughts on that?
Well, okay, if I may, okay, what I do is just as I mentioned in the previous part of my comment, okay, I think it's something to do with the rapport as well, your relationship with your students. In the beginning, of course, when we are not very familiar with the class, okay, there is some kind of barrier between us, okay, but as the time goes by, we get friendly with them and they get to know me better, I get to know them better, and that time, okay, I can read their facial expressions, and sometimes I jokingly I said I can read your minds. If I can't, okay, so okay, from the facial expressions I kind of guess, and it comes with age, and I kind of guess, okay, whether they like the lesson, whether they don't like the lesson, whether they like my teaching, whether they don't like my teaching. So it's very informal. And okay, and in the end, I always try to leave maybe 2, 3 minutes, 5 minutes the most to ask the students, especially the elder ones, the older, I mean, adult students. Okay, tell me what you liked about today's session. What is one thing, one takeaway that you get from today's lesson? So they would say one word or two. Okay, and it doesn't have to be from everyone, but one or two persons say, teacher, I like this, teacher, I love this, I will remember this, and then it made my day. So that's one thing. And another question is something that you want to know more about. Okay, or okay, I try to rephrase what I say. Okay, I don't say what thing that you didn't like. Okay, maybe sometimes I just
I'm just quite direct. I ask them, is there anything that you didn't quite like, or is there anything that you want to know more about? And then they will come up with some questions. So this way I can do some kind of evaluation and ask them to reflect on their own learning. So students can also do this reflective practice for their own learning, because we believe that students are responsible for their own learning. So okay, this way I do this with the older students, the adult students, and with young students we can also do this. But young students, what we can do is sometimes we can ask them, okay, thumb up and thumb down, and this is very easy. Nothing, no materials needed. Okay, class, do you like today's lesson? Okay, thumb up, and they can have your thumb. And sometimes you can give them some smiley faces. So very simple thing. So it's a kind of evaluation, but evaluation comes with reflection. So you are evaluating your lesson, you are evaluating your learners' learning, and they are also evaluating your lessons in your teaching, and two-way relationship. And this way I kind of okay help my students to reflect on their learning and reflect on my teaching. I don't know, I talk too much. Okay, but thank you very much, Saya.
Well, I think that's a comprehensive answer. So thank you so much, Xiaoma.
Thank you, Sia. Thank you. There are quite a lot of comments here. Um, Thank you, Sia Benedict. Okay. And yeah, if you have question, you can have your mic on and you can talk to us directly. And Sia Miandu, okay, and whoever is here would it is okay. And these kind of sessions, we welcome your ideas and your insights and your experience. This is a platform for all of us. We all are teachers. Some of us in the beginning of our career, some of us are a bit in the end of the career, but whatever, we all are teachers. So you are most welcome to share your thoughts and ideas on teaching. That way we can improve ourselves. So you're welcome. Yeah, please.
Okay, so what? Oh yes, teacher Hein Pyo.
Actually, I'm not a teacher. I'm just a student. Yeah, I'm just a student. Not a-
I
Yes,
can't really.
actually, I'm not a teacher.
Yeah, probably I think the connection on your side is not very strong. I think it's quite weak. We can't hear you quite well, Sia. And if you don't mind, can you please write up your questions here and we'll come back to your questions, yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Sia. Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
hello.
Yeah, it seems that we
Can
don't.
you hear? Can you hear my
Ah,
voice?
Yeah,
it
sure.
was.
Oh, okay. Actually, I'm not a teacher. I'm just a student right now. Um, and so most of the participants in here are might be teachers. So when I ask all of the teacher, um, most of the teacher in our country used to teach like that. They used to teach all the lesson and 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 all day, and they did use some playing game. So we also go and learning study our lesson. So uh, when when the teacher says some funny story and during teaching, we uh yeah we can focus on our lesson very easily. So uh it also reflected teaching or not. That's my question.
That's a very good question. So thank you so much, Ong Kai Pyo. Of course, I think it's also related to I actually initially I decided not to talk about the care theory, but I think I will just go back to one last slide to talk about that. But before I just go back to that slide, I just have got one comment. First, although you are not a teacher, as teacher Mei shared her insights on the usefulness of or maybe the usefulness of reflective teaching to students as well, right? So you may also reflect on what you enjoyed or maybe what you really did in and that's good. So you can reflect on that. And the other thing is, of course, when you can communicate with your teacher, or when you can just approach to your teacher and let your teacher know about how you are feeling, I'm sure teachers these days are really open-minded, and they will be more than happy to listen to your concerns, to listen to your feedback. So in that way, you are also you can become a very good reflective student, who helps your teacher, who helps your class as well, right? So feel free to go talk to your teacher. So that would be my suggestion. And last but not least, I think I will be sharing this slide, and I will just finish my session. This one, right? So when we talk about taking care of our students, there's one concept, one theory that we talk in education. So it's called care theory. So anyway, so what care theory? When I talk about care theory, okay, you might be wondering, okay, what is care theory? But in practice, I think we are very familiar with this concept. We become teachers because we would like to take care of our students. We become teachers because we are passionate about teaching, right? So we care for our students a lot. But the question the issue, the perspective that challenges which is challenged by care theory is that, do we really care about our students too? Right? For example, in the scenario that I provided with you, when a student doesn't finish their homework, then we may probably say that, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you? You don't finish homework again, right? So that's the possible scenario. It is not that we are just blaming them. It is because we care for them, right? We believe that homework can help them, can be helpful for their learning journey. But the other concept that we also need to reflect on, the other concept that needs to be taken into consideration is also care about, right? Do we also care about their well-beings, right? Do we also care about their social or emotional well-beings? For example, as I give you two sentences, right? I think two. The first one is, it is true, right? So we mostly want our students to turn on their cameras for stronger engagement if we are conducting Zoom classes. But the question is, that's true. It can be helpful for us, for the class, for the students. But what if the internet signal doesn't permit the student to do so? So my point here is that when we make reflections, when we want to become better teacher, when we want to conduct more effective teaching or learning practices for everyone, it is true we will consider, or maybe we will care for our students and for the classes. On the other hand, make sure that you also trying to incorporate the principles or the perspectives of care about as well. No, so that's, I would say, that's all for my talk. And I think I'm gonna give the floor back to Myanmar Tisol.
Yes. Okay. On behalf of MNTSO and other participants, may I say thank you to the Audience too, for your time, for your support, and for your effort for meeting more teachers. Your section is really informative and thought-provoking. Personally, for me, I am interested in reflect teaching, but I didn't know how to do, when to start, and what area do I need to focus on. Now, according throughout your talk, I know the form, and we have a chance to know that. So that will keep in mind that we are trying to become a reflected teachers in our future classroom. Okay. Secondly, I would like to thanks to all the attendees for your presence, for your engagement, and for your active participations. Last but not the least, I would like to say huge thanks to Yamatisol members for your effort, for your continuous support. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you